It all started on a quiet Monday morning in downtown Brooksville, a town where people usually minded their business, where folks greeted each other with nods instead of smiles, and where appearances still meant everything. On this particular day, a black woman walked into the local police station. Her clothes were simple: jeans, a checkered shirt, a leather strap bag slung over her shoulder, and her long braids fell gently down her back. Nothing about her screamed power. Nothing about her told the room that she was someone important. To the officers standing behind the counter, she looked like just another civilian. Officer Daniels, known around the station for his short temper and loud mouth, spotted her first. He squinted, like her very presence irritated him. Maybe it was her skin, maybe it was her silence, or maybe it was the way she held her head high, not in defiance, but with the quiet strength of someone who knew exactly who they were. Without asking her name, why she was there, or even offering a greeting, Daniel stepped forward, puffing out his chest. His boots thudded hard on the tiled floor as he approached her. The woman stood still, eyes steady, not a flicker of fear on her face. A few other officers in the background paused, watching quietly. Most of them had seen Daniel's act out before, but no one dared stop him. "What are you doing here?" he asked, voice sharp and laced with suspicion. The woman didn't flinch. She simply replied, "I have an appointment." Daniel scoffed. "With who? You people don't just walk in here uninvited." "You people." The words hung in the air like smoke, cold and dangerous. Still, she remained calm. He stepped closer. Too close. Then it happened. His hand flew up, and before anyone could stop him, he shoved her back. Hard. The room gasped. Chairs scraped. One officer took a step forward but stopped himself. The woman stumbled slightly, regained her balance, and stared back at him, not with anger, not with fear, but with something deeper. Disappointment. Then came the punch. Fast. Brutal. Uncalled for. His fist connected with her jaw, her head snapped to the side. The sound echoed across the station. Time froze. No one moved, no one breathed, and still, she didn't fall. Instead, she slowly turned back to face him, eyes locked on his like a quiet storm. Then, without saying a word, she reached into her bag and pulled out a badge. She held it up, calmly, deliberately. Daniels blinked. At first, he didn't understand. Then he read it. Chief. The word hit him like thunder. Chief of police. His face turned pale, his knees buckled, and right there in front of everyone he dropped, not out of respect, not out of guilt, but out of sheer panic. The woman, Chief Alana Brooks, looked around the room. Every officer's eyes were on her now, silent, shocked, some ashamed. She didn't speak. She didn't yell. She didn't need to. The truth was louder than anything she could have said. And just as everyone tried to process what had just happened, the doors of the station burst open again. This time it was a teenager, tall, slim, nervous. He walked in like he wasn't sure he was supposed to be there. His name was Jamal, 17 years old, high school senior. That morning he'd made a small, quiet choice that would change his life forever. He had given up his seat on the bus to a pregnant white woman. She'd looked tired, worn out. He hadn't thought twice about it. She had thanked him kindly, then sat down without making a fuss. But what she handed him afterward, tucked inside a folded piece of paper, had left him speechless. That note, that simple note, would take Jamal on a journey he never expected. A journey that would somehow lead him into this very station, into the middle of something much bigger than himself, and in a room full of officers who now stared at their chief in disbelief. Jamal stood unnoticed, holding that note in his hand, heart pounding. He didn't know that his story and hers were about to collide. He didn't know that the truth he carried might just be the final spark in a fire that had been waiting to burn. And as Chief Brooks slowly turned her head and met his eyes across the room, something passed between them. Recognition. Fate. Whatever it was powerful. But just before either of them could speak, the sound of running footsteps echoed from the hallway. A new presence was coming. Someone who wasn't supposed to be there. Someone who didn't want the truth to come out. And just like that, everything shifted again. What started as an ordinary morning was now the center of a storm, and the next move could change everything. The footsteps grew louder, sharp, fast, echoing against the walls like a warning. Chief Brooks turned her head slightly, just enough to catch a glimpse of the hallway, but her eyes quickly returned to Jamal. She could sense it. This boy didn't just stumble in here by chance. Something brought him. Something important. And, maybe, dangerous. Officer Daniels was still on his knees, face pale, lips trembling. He had started to whisper something, but the words didn't come out right. Around the room, the other officers didn't move. Some looked down. Some stared at the floor like they wished it would swallow them whole. Others, newer and less sure of the politics inside the station, just stood frozen, unsure of what to do. No one dared speak. No one dared interfere. The chief was standing tall, and Daniels, once the loudest man in the building, was small now, shrinking by the second. Then a figure turned the corner into the room, a man in a gray suit, tall, older, white hair neatly combed back. His name was Gregory Hunt, and he was the city's deputy commissioner. Not the type to walk into the local precinct without warning. Not unless something had gone very, very wrong. The moment he entered, his eyes scanned the room, and in seconds, he understood. The silence, the tension, the look on Daniel's face. Then his eyes landed on Chief Brooks. "Alana," he said, voice calm but tight. A word. Now, Chief Brooks didn't move, didn't flinch. She stared at him, steady and calm. The room was still waiting. Even Jamal, clutching the note tightly in his hand, could feel the air thicken. He didn't know who this man was, but his arrival changed everything. Gregory stepped forward, keeping his voice low and professional. "Let's talk in private." But Chief Brooks finally responded. "I think this is exactly where we need to talk." There was something in her tone, not loud, not aggressive, but solid, final. Gregory hesitated. He glanced around the room and saw the fear in Daniels' eyes, the guilt in a few others, and Jamal, standing just inside the doorway, holding a folded note like it was made of glass. Gregory's jaw tightened. "This isn't the time." "It already is," she replied, without blinking. Still, she didn't raise her voice. She didn't, but the authority in her presence was undeniable now. She didn't wear a fancy uniform. She didn't need to. That badge still hung from her hand, and it spoke louder than anyone else could. Gregory finally stepped back, clearly uncomfortable. "We'll deal with this later." Chief Brooks didn't stop him, didn't argue. She just watched him leave. Then she turned toward Daniels, who had now pulled himself up from the floor, not quite standing tall, not quite steady. He avoided her gaze. Whatever pride he once carried as an officer had cracked wide open. In that stillness, Jamal finally stepped forward. His hands were shaking slightly, but he managed to speak. "Excuse me, ma'am," he said softly. Everyone turned. His voice, though quiet, pierced the tension like a pin to glass. Chief Brooks looked at him again, really looked. She walked toward him slowly, and the officers parted as if instinct told them to. "What's your name?" she asked. "Jamal," he said. "Jamal Rivers." She nodded once. "You have something?" He looked down at the note in his hand, fingers curling tighter around it. "Yes, a woman gave me this morning on the bus, after I gave her my seat." Brooks raised an eyebrow slightly. "A woman?" "She was pregnant. She said thank you. Then she gave me this and told me to read it in private. I didn't know where else to go. Something about it just felt serious." He slowly unfolded the paper, hands trembling. As he held it out, Chief Brooks gently took it from him. Her eyes scanned the words. The room was so quiet. You could hear the hum of the overhead lights. Her expression changed only slightly, but enough for Jamal to notice. Her brows drew closer, her jaw tensed. She folded the note back up and slipped it into her pocket. Where did she get off the bus? she asked. Jamal shook his head. I didn't see. She was gone by the time I looked again. Brooks stared at the floor for a moment, thinking. Jamal shifted his feet. Did I do something wrong? He asked. She looked up at him quickly. No, you did something right. One of the younger officers, a woman named Riley, stepped forward. Chief, if I may, she said nervously. I was with Daniels yesterday. There was talk. Something about a meeting, something off the books, in the old locker room, around midnight. Chief Brooks turned to her. What kind of meeting? I don't know, Officer Riley said. But Daniels was acting strange afterward. Said we should keep things clean around here, and that you wouldn't be chief for long. Daniels' head snapped up. That's a lie. Brooks didn't even look at him. You had a meeting? With who? Daniels hesitated. I don't have to answer that. Brooks took a step closer. You do now. The room tensed again. Whatever was happening here went beyond one punch, beyond one act of disrespect. Something was unfolding, something hidden, something bigger. Jamal looked from one face to another. He was just a student. He wasn't supposed to be here. But now that he was, he couldn't look away. And for some reason, he had the strange feeling that the note he brought, the one he hadn't even read, was the start of something he didn't fully understand. Chief Brooks reached into her bag and pulled out a small black notebook. She flipped through the pages, stopped at one and quietly whispered, So it's true. Before anyone could ask what she meant, the front doors of the station swung open again, this time with more force. A man in civilian clothes rushed in, breathing heavily, eyes wide with panic. Chief Brooks, he called out, you need to see this now. She walked toward him. What is it? The man looked around nervously. It's about the woman on the bus. Jamal's heart skipped. She wasn't just any passenger, the man said. She's connected, government, deep connections, and she left that note for a reason. Brooks stood perfectly still. What reason? The man hesitated. She's under protection, or at least she was. Jamal's voice cracked. Is she okay? The man didn't answer. Everyone knew what that meant, and just like that, the storm got darker. The mystery deeper, the stakes higher, and no one was ready for what would come next. Chief Brooks stared at the man who had just stormed in, her eyes sharp and unwavering. Behind her, Daniels had gone pale again, his mouth slightly open like he wanted to say something but couldn't find the words. The other officers exchanged nervous glances. Jamal just stood frozen. His mind spun, trying to piece together what had just been said. The woman from the bus, the one who had smiled so kindly at him, was now connected, protected, and possibly in danger. Why had she picked him? Why give him the note? Where is she now? Brooks asked the man. He shifted uneasily. We don't know. She disappeared after getting off the bus. Surveillance caught her walking into an alley near West 9th. Then nothing. No cameras? Brooks asked. The man nodded. Cut. Disabled. Someone knew what they were doing. Brooks turned slowly to look at Jamal. You said she smiled at you, spoke kindly. Did she seem scared? Jamal tried to remember. No, not scared. Calm. Almost too calm, like she knew something I didn't. Brooks nodded slightly. She knew someone would be looking for her, and she knew she couldn't keep that note. Officer Riley stepped closer. What did the note say, Chief? Brooks paused for a long moment. It mentioned names, places. One of the names is sitting in this room. All eyes turned back to Daniels. He opened his mouth, but no sound came out. Then, suddenly, his voice returned, sharp and defensive. This is insane. That woman, whoever she is, probably made it up. You can't trust some random person off the street. Brooks narrowed her eyes. You punched a civilian, unprovoked, lied about it. And now her note connects you to a secret meeting. Maybe you should be the one worried about who's telling the truth. Daniels looked around, desperate for backup, but no one moved. The man in civilian clothes leaned in and whispered something into Brooks's ear. She froze. Her expression hardened. Then she turned and walked toward her office, motioning for Jamal and the man to follow. The door shut quietly behind them. Inside, she placed the note on her desk and unfolded it slowly. Jamal watched as her fingers smoothed it out. His stomach was in knots. Whatever was on that paper had set off a chain of events way bigger than him, but he was part of it now. Brooks looked up. The woman's name is Michelle Everly, former intelligence analyst. Worked with internal affairs, then moved into something off-record. Classified assignments. She vanished last year. Everyone assumed she was in hiding. Now she shows up on your bus and gives you this. Jamal blinked. Why me? That's the part I'm still trying to understand, she said. But I don't believe in coincidences. She chose you for a reason. The man spoke up. There's more. She's been gathering evidence about a network operating within the city's enforcement departments. Hidden deals, unauthorized raids, planted evidence. And there's a name circled in her notes. Officer Daniels. Jamal's chest tightened. He's part of it? We don't know how deep it goes yet, the man said. But the note hints at multiple officers, possibly even high-level connections. Brooks sighed, folding the note again. That's why Daniels was so shaken when he saw me. He thought the woman was gone for good. He never expected the truth to walk back through these doors. In the hands of a teenager. Outside the office, tension still filled the room. Officers were whispering in corners. Daniels had stepped out to make a call, pacing nervously in the hallway. Officer Riley watched him closely, fingers twitching near her radio. Back inside, Jamal sat down slowly. His hands were finally still, but his thoughts were racing. What do we do now? Brooks leaned against the edge of her desk. We find Michelle. We find her before they do, and we figure out who's helping Daniels, because someone's covering for him. That's the only way he's stayed protected this long. Just then, a soft knock came at the door. Riley peeked in. Chief, there's something else. From the surveillance van. Brooks waved her in. Riley entered and handed over a tablet. The screen paused on a blurry image. Brooks tapped it. A video began to play. It showed Michelle walking briskly down a side street, then turning into a narrow alley. Seconds later, another figure followed. Male, hooded, tall. The footage was grainy, but his posture was familiar. Riley spoke softly. That's Officer Kearns. He wasn't on duty this morning.